How did Napoleon become the German emperor and end up attacking France? This scenario is wild. Napoleon somehow appeared in Paris in the early 1930s. After a military coup carried out by the army, a completely confused Bonaparte was crowned once again as Emperor of the French, still not fully understanding where he was, or just how much trouble he was getting himself into. Acting on pure muscle memory, Napoleon began his reign by declaring war on Germany. He didn't like them because, at Leipzig, Saxon troops suddenly switched sides and started shooting him in the back. Germans, unsurprisingly, did not like him either. But the Reichswehr, limited by the Treaty of Versailles to barely 100,000 soldiers, stood no chance. After a campaign lasting several months, Napoleon captured Berlin. This allowed him to restore the German Empire. To legitimize his rule, he married a hot local aristocrat from the House of Hohenzollern and proclaimed himself Emperor of France and Germany in a personal union. And here the trouble began. Although the victory temporarily boosted support for the emperor, soon the Great Depression hit France. Napoleon had spent a large part of the gold reserves on the war against Germany, and when Great Britain imposed a trade embargo on him for starting the war, France was dead broke. Although they actually beat the historical unemployment record, the French weren't exactly happy. And what do the French usually do when they're unhappy? That's right, they behead their leader.
Wait, what?
An angry mob storms the Élysée Palace. Napoleon has no choice. At the last moment, he manages to slip out the back door. His luck doesn't extend to Bonaparte's wife, who is captured and, following old-school tradition, sent to the guillotine. As the communist revolt spreads across the country, Napoleon faces an impossible choice. He could die or escape and lose his empire. He chooses the riskiest option, fleeing to Berlin.
I will return. You will regret this.
Will the Germans decide to support the emperor or capture and kill him? Ordinary people won't accept him. Hundreds of thousands of protesters flood the streets of the capital. And then, something strange happens. The German army steps in and defends the emperor? Why would they do that? Under normal circumstances, this would never happen. The problem is that the alternative is even worse. Revolution. Among the protesters, leftists and communists dominate. German conservatives and the army may dislike the French emperor, but they fear revolution even more, especially after what just happened in France. For many officers, this is only a temporary solution. A French emperor today is better than a political commissar tomorrow. And besides, they genuinely admire Napoleon's historical genius.
I will destroy the communists and make Germany great.
Against all odds, Napoleon clings to power and starts planning his revenge. He immediately decides to remove all restrictions and begins expanding the armed forces. War is coming. Not everyone is happy though. One would-be painter, for example, stubbornly insists that, according to lore, he should be the commander. Napoleon considers him a harmless lunatic and sends him off to the army to scrub toilets.
Sorry, I speak no German, and by the way, can you shut the
Taking power did not solve all of Bonaparte's problems, though. In fact, this is where the real trouble began. The German army, reduced to the bare minimum by the French, could barely occupy Luxembourg. As if that wasn't enough, Napoleon is surrounded. The Soviets to the east, Communist France to the west, and Czechoslovakia, allied with them, stabbing right into the Reich's gut. Oh, and there's also Great Britain.
Excuse me, can you lift that down?
Only the emperor's military genius could save his throne and secure his dominance over Europe. He had to act fast, because the coalition could declare war on him at any moment. The rearmament had to be kept secret, and Napoleon himself had to adopt a conciliatory tone. One wrong move, and French and Soviet tanks would be rolling into Berlin. Paradoxically, the fact that Germany would have this brilliant general as its leader was dangerous for them. European powers could no longer fool themselves into thinking peace was possible, and passive morons like Chamberlain might never have stumbled into power. Especially, the French communists could have no doubt that Bonaparte would return for his throne. And that is exactly what happened. Not only did European powers ramp up their own rearmament faster, but Britain and France maintained a trade blockade, preventing Germany from rearming. The Soviets, for whom Germany was an obstacle to uniting with France and taking over Europe, did not help either. However, Napoleon had no intention of giving up. First, he managed to convince the British to loosen the trade blockade in order to maintain the balance of power on the continent.
I know I'm bad, but listen, the communists are worse and stronger, and you hate the French anyways.
However, the German army still does not receive all the resources needed for rearmament. Despite several years of preparation, ammunition depots and fuel reserves remain almost empty. In this scenario, Germany should have no chance against the French army, which, unlike in real history, began preparing for war much earlier, fully aware that a conflict was coming. But French doctrine was built around a long material war, which meant there was only one chance. Take Paris in 2 weeks, overthrow the communist government before Moscow, Prague, and London could react. On the 1st of May, 1938, German tanks roll into Belgium. The Belgian army does nothing. Why? In secret, the Belgian king and political elites, terrified of a communist invasion and of ending up on the guillotine, signed a secret neutrality pact with Napoleon, allowing German troops free passage. This completely shocks the French. Meanwhile, the German tanks sweep across Belgium at lightning speed, heading straight for Paris. Time is against the Emperor. The plan must be executed with surgical precision. The French army scrambles into action, racing to Meaux, northeast of Paris, on the Marne River, hurriedly setting up defenses. The United Kingdom and Czechoslovakia place their armed forces on high alert. Napoleon's ambassadors do their best to calm things down. Britain's decision is crucial. It's unsure whether to support the German Bonapartists or the French communists. It doesn't really like either side, so it holds back for now. Meanwhile, the Czechs, though mobilizing their army, also wait to see how things unfold, unwilling to back the losing side. At the same time, Mussolini threatens to strike France from the other side, pulling some of the French forces toward the Alps. The decisive battle for Paris is underway. Napoleon has very little time. Will he break the defenders before fuel and ammunition run out? The communist forces, although larger and better armed than the German units, haven't fully mobilized. Morale is low. Many soldiers are fed up with communism and don't want to fight against Bonaparte. On top of that, most of the command staff loyal to Napoleon were sent by the communists on a student exchange program, Erasmus+, straight to the gulags in a charming location in the Soviet Union. The poorly led French army meets the German armored spearhead. The defensive line breaks. Napoleon wins through psychology. French soldiers, seeing the imperial banner, even on German tanks, lose their will to fight. The demoralized army retreats in panic. Communists mobilize workers' militias and build barricades on the streets of Paris. Fighting spreads across the capital, but the city falls within a week. Napoleon regains power in France, and with it, access to French stockpiles of weapons and ammunition. At this moment, it might seem like the emperor has won everything, but disputes quickly erupt between the French and the Germans, who demand the return of Alsace and Lorraine, pushing Napoleon's empire to the brink of collapse. The British, alarmed by Napoleon's unexpected success, impose a full naval blockade and exploit the chaos to seize French colonies, cutting the emperor off from vital supplies once again. Meanwhile, the Soviets are considering war with Poland and Finland. What happens next? The emperor has two options. He can negotiate peace, making concessions and dividing his empire. Or he can choose war, a war he has almost no chance of winning. The French army, lacking experienced commanders, is in disarray, and the German forces lack the equipment, ammunition, and resources for a prolonged conflict. It's unclear which option Napoleon would choose. Alongside his genius, he was known for his arrogance and unwillingness to compromise, so the idea of peace seems far-fetched. But would he risk a suicidal mission? One thing is certain, his empire is standing on borrowed time. Of course, this entire scenario borders on the absurd. A German empire ruled by Napoleon? Germany defeating a prepared France this quickly? It would take risky decisions, a lot of luck, and an almost 170-year-old emperor. What do you think was the most unbelievable part of this scenario? In the pinned comment, there's a list of your answers, which I'll try to update from time to time. And if you'd like to see a second part, let me know in the comments. I didn't plan one because Napoleon's situation seems completely hopeless. Or is it?